Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. We're talking Charlton and Big C Sports. We do real talk and we do it worldwide every day, Monday through Friday on Charlton and Big C Sports. And I want to say thank you to our Latin America following, Bienvenidos. Thank you for watching and listening to Charlton and Big C Sports. And also, Big C, today is beautiful, April the 8th, 2016. And I also want to tell you, Big C, I know that you've had a busy week because you started out in the great hot state of Texas, and you've also talking about the Masters. I know you good old boys down south. You really love your sports, Big C.
Well, I love my sports talk, but I'm real tired right now. I'm thinking about taking a nap and letting you go solo on this show. My legs and everything else is giving out on me today.
I didn't know you guys took naps down in the south. I thought it was all work and no sleep. But also, Big C, speaking of how we always bridge and pay homage to Hollywood actors, because let's face it, a lot of those guys are the ones that go to the games. We have the Masters hitting off. We have Golden State winning 70 games. We have Major League Baseball tipping off. The Giants and Dodgers playing this weekend in San Francisco. That's always a nice battle. But I know you like to pay homage to some of our great actors. And Kevin Costner, you have a lot of inspirational movies that he's done, but he's one of your favorite actors, Big C.
Well, Kevin Costner, I mean, his most iconic role in history, Charlton, came in a movie called...
with the Tin Cup?
I go blank because I'm old.
I think that's CTE, Big C. CTE, live on Charlton and Big C. I think it's Tin Cup, Big C. That's one of the great golf movies that he was in.
That was his golf movie.
Yeah.
You know, that was his golf movie, Tin Cup, with Rene Russo and Don Johnson.
Yeah.
Where he played this golfer that could not get over his drinking habits, Charlton.
Well, are you saying golfers have drinking habits too, Big C?
Well, you know, I don't know if it's all straight water in those clear bottles that they consume, you know.
Okay.
As much as they sweat, look like it's a little more hot water than it is straight water.
You notice he never said what was inside that tin cup, Big C.
But the movie I was thinking of, Charlton, was Dances with Wolves.
Yeah.
It was just a great, iconic movie about the American Indians and the stripes that they went through.
Yeah.
Back during, you know, America's occupation.
Yeah.
Occupation days back in the Civil War, after Civil War times.
Right.
But he also played in a great baseball movie, Charlton, called Bull Durham.
Oh, yeah.
You know, he played in Bull Durham, and the kid who played in Shawshank Redemption, his name evades me right now, the great Andy.
Yeah.
You know, he was this pitcher in the movie called Meat. And, you know, Kevin Costner was a catcher. But Kevin has played in sports movies. He's played in iconic movies. There was a movie he played in, No Way Out.
Yeah. I remember that.
Years ago with the great Gene Hackman.
That was excellent.
And an excellent movie. He was a Russian spy inside the Pentagon. But Kevin Costner's run across the gamut, you know, in things that he's done. He acted with the late Whitney Houston.
Yes.
You know, in The Bodyguard. So his roles have been very complex over time and also funny at times, Charlton. But, you know, when you look at him playing in Tin Cup and with the Masters going on and in Bull Durham with the start of baseball season, you know, it all covers one. And down here at the Masters today, you know, today was moving day at the Masters. And, you know, a lot of players moved. For the first time in his career, Jordan Spieth shot over 70 at Augusta. And, you know, Roy McIlroy now is only one shot behind. And this might be Roy's breakout year. I mean, everybody's been looking for him to do it over the past 5-6 years. And he has come up short. But right now, he's in the hunt of things, Charles.
Well, that would be amazing. You talk about Spieth. He was +2 today. Finished with, he's -4 for the total. And also, McIlroy shot 1 under today, but he's only 1 behind. I think that shapes up for a really strong weekend match. I know a lot of people talk about Mickelson, but he's kind of in the abyss right now. But I still think that when you look at golf and we talk about the great Kevin Costner and some of the other great things that Costner has done, he's acted also, I believe he was in Django, if I have that right. I believe he was... Go ahead, Big C.
He was in Django, Charlton. Well, no, Don Johnson was in Django, the guy who played with him in Tin Cup.
That's right, in Tin Cup, Don Johnson
he was with, he was one of the slave owners when he was in it. Matter of fact, Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah, Jamie Foxx also.
Worked for him in that movie in Django and stuff. And, you know, but these actors have run across the gamut. You know, Don Johnson, many people will remember him from the Miami Vice series of the 80s, where they really changed the fashion fair of America because everybody wanted to be cool and sleek and wearing all that cotton and silk.
Now, but one thing I'll say about Miami Vice, that was not accurate, because when I was in Florida on South Beach, down there at the Super Bowl last time I was in Miami, there's hardly anybody that wears clothing down there, Big C. Most everybody that I saw, I thought I was overdressed and I was wearing short pants and a tank top. I mean, hardly any clothing, but it's such a beautiful city, Big C. So when they talk about Tin Cup, I know they had something in the cup, but just your thoughts on the Masters again. I know we talked about Spieth and McIlroy. We have Lee, he's in 4th place. Also Snickers, he's at tied for 5th. But we don't see Mickelson, and I just want to get your thoughts on how it shapes up. Is it something do you really miss? I know we miss Tiger Woods not being there, Big C. We talk about that all the time, and the great Jack paid homage to him. But is your interest in watching these two guys, McIlroy and Spieth, or would it be better? Did you enjoy it more when we had Mickelson and also the great Tiger Woods, Big C?
Well, when you had Mickelson in the hunt, you had your Ernie Els, Vijay Singh, golfers of that legacy. They were in the hunt because they were iconic names on the tour, Charlton. We got a lot of young guns out there now. And with these young players, they really haven't developed a following because they don't have the consistency. Jordan Spieth was hot last year.
Yeah.
No one thought anyone could beat him. You know, he ended up being the FedEx Cup champion. But you have to do it over time. It comes to body of work. It's almost like the Heisman Trophy used to be in college football.
Yeah.
It was about the body of work that you had done, not that you come in and you can win it as a true freshman because you had a great year and you would be gone after that. But, if that's what golf is. Golf, when you talk about Arnold Palmer, you talk about Jack Nicholson, you talk about, all the guys, Nick Faldo over the years.
Bubba Watson, Adam Scott.
Had followings, Charlton, because they had put in time, 10, 15, 20 years on the PGA Tour.
Yeah.
So the fans grew a kinness to him. It was almost like family when you played, and that's what Tiger drew.
Yeah.
Everybody wanted to be a part of Tiger. It was like Tiger's family when he showed up.
Yeah.
These young guys, it's a wave effect. Who's hot this week? Who's hot that tournament? So until they can develop some consistency, even Phil Mickelson is great as far as the gallery goes.
Yeah.
These are the names that you have grown in golf over the past 2 decades wanting to follow, Charlton.
Well, Mickelson shot 72 yesterday, but he's fallen off nowhere really near the leaderboard right now. He'll take a miraculous tournament for him to even get in the top 5. But I just think when we look at Spieth, and I want to like the guy because he's the All-American, what they want to make the All-American guy in a diverse environment. And I still have an issue with the Masters because as an African-American, I've always looked at sports as being a galvanizing sport where you bring people together. But I know the history and the systemic way that golf is set up is so expensive, a lot of kids can't afford it. And me, I have a heart for a lot of kids. I even have a program that helps create scholarships for young student athletes. And I know that some people say, well, they're tired of talking about race, just keep things the way they are. We heard those comments back in the 1950s. But I just want to see a world where more people are included. Is there anything we can do on the young circuit that would get more youth and minority kids involved also in this such a great game, Big C? Your thoughts on that?
Well, Charlton, it would come down to the equipment companies if we're going to make a huge change. And if you look at the companies like Titleist, Nike, Callaway, Cleveland, Cobra.
Yeah.
Those companies have to make a difference. They have to make the game more affordable for the younger inner city kids. Now, when you think about inner city, Charlton, there's not a lot of places where you can play sports. You can go out and play football, baseball, or tennis.
Yeah.
But to build a small driving range and a chipping putting range is not hard to do. All you need is a narrow strip of land. Now, if they put that together and allow these kids to come in and practice to offer them some diversity.
Okay, but that's the issue right there, Big C.
Basic athletics that they've always been given their entire life. You and I know, grew up, and everybody would look at us and say, hey, you're a big kid. You ever think about playing football?
Yeah.
No one asked us what was our GPA.
Yeah.
All they cared about were we going to play football, basketball, baseball, track, and field.
Yeah.
GPA was irrelevant. And once we can get out of that thought process as a society because you're a large kid, and I'll take you back to a guy I knew, Michael Clark Duncan.
Oh, huge guy, big guy.
People remember him from the Green Mile.
Yeah.
You know, he should have won an Oscar in that role.
Yeah,
and Michael was a huge man, about 6'6", 320, 25 pounds. He got his start in Hollywood, Charlton, as Will Smith's bodyguard.
Yeah.
But he went to school at Northwestern, Charlton, on an academic scholarship. Now, he was as big as anybody on the football team. Matter of fact, he was bigger than an offensive lineman that Northwestern had drafted, number 5 overall.
Yeah.
By the Indianapolis coach, Chris Hinton.
Yeah.
Who went on to have an all-pro career, and he was in that John Elway trade between Denver and Indianapolis. So when you think about a guy that everybody said, what position do you play? He said, I don't. I'm in drama school.
Wow.
And it showed his diversity as a man, not because of his size, but of his intelligence. That his mother would not allow him to play sports because she knew he had a brain. And so she wasn't going to let society pigeonhole her son as being just an athlete. Unfortunately, he died a couple years ago. He passed away on us. But Michael Clark Duncan was not an athlete. He was just a great, iconic physical specimen who was a very intelligent African-American man, Charlton.
Well, speaking of very intelligent, this segment is also sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the Escalade. You can only get it there brand new. And when you go down and drive it, tell them that Charlton and Big C sent you. And also, Big C, I think what you just touched on is something important as you paid homage to the great Kevin Costner. But here in Northern California, we have Mayor Kevin Johnson, and now he stands with Major League Baseball Commissioner Rob Manfred in San Francisco last June. And they had an initiative called Play Ball. And it's trying to get more kids of color back into the game of baseball. We know there used to be the Negro Leagues, and they have the Negro League Hall of Fame in the great city of Kansas City, back in Missouri. But they're actually making a drive, just like what you just said, to get more kids involved. It's because it's an inclusive sport. But I also believe, the cynical side of me says, they don't want it to be inclusive. But I think when you have the mayor of Sacramento, a former NBA All-Star, Kevin Johnson, talking with the baseball commissioner about how to make baseball more diverse, I mean, we got to have the same kind of talk for golf, but it just seems like, and you brought it to my attention, didn't want to really believe it, but there are forces that don't want inclusion in golf, especially at the Masters with their exclusion toward women and also people of color. But in a world that's more and more diverse, Big C, I mean, I don't know what we could do other than what Mayor Johnson's doing, Big C.
Let's look at it, first of all, when you talk about this golf tournament that's going on right now.
Yeah.
What is the name of it, Charlton?
The Masters.
Okay. Who was that back in the South when that golf course was created?
Yeah, that's true.
Okay?
Yeah.
The Masters played there. The slave owners played at that golf course when that golf course was named, and only the Masters could play there. That's how it has its name.
Yeah.
They do the broadcast from this place called Toomer's Cabin, okay? Where the broadcast team will set up for CBS this weekend. Toomer's Cabin.
Yeah.
Toomer's Cabin was a slave cabin at that time that they've refurbished and made it a nice place. It looks nice now, but when the slaves were staying in there, they didn't have a floor.
Right.
It didn't have a window. They may have had a fireplace trying to keep warm, but it was not what it is now. It's a place that's been set up for television. But it was a slave house. The Masters was about where they played at. There was no minorities of any race, no Asians, no Hispanics, no Native American Indians. None of those people could get on there. Only the white, prominent slave owners and politicians could play there at that time.
Well,
so they've kept that name. That name is like the rebel flag, Charlie.
Yeah, yeah. We know that.
Just as denigrating as the rebel flag, regardless of the history of the tournament and the golf course. It is just as denigrating as the flag that they had removed from South Carolina's courthouse, Capitol last year after the mishap that went on down there with the slaying of 9 church members. Yeah. So, as long as certain names stay in place in America, Charlton, equality will never come about. Well, people fight to keep those legacies alive, and so it's what America is. It's not about equality. We want to keep our legacy.
Well, see, here in Sacramento, in Northern California, you have Mayor Kevin Johnson. African-American baseball players, they still come around the region to help get young kids involved. Corey Vaughn, there's a Ryan Royster, Derek Hill, but it's not like the 1960s, the 70s, the 80s, and 90s when a renaissance of black players such as Dusty Baker, who's now the Washington Nationals manager, and also Derek Lee went from Sacramento high schools to get them involved in baseball. I just would love to see that kind of push also on the golf course.
It's what we talked about. What inner city lots are available that developers don't go in the high-rise apartments and office buildings, and they want to condemn these areas.
Yeah.
So they're not allowing kids to have places to play. When you look at the high schools, Charlton, in any metropolitan area, high schools do not possess stadiums anymore. Normally they put a stadium up where 4 or 5 different high schools are playing and utilizing the same stadium, Charlton.
Unless you're in Texas and you get your own stadium down in the great state of Texas, Big C.
Oh, well, down here, I don't even know if you can call those high schools. There's a lot of junior colleges that don't have stadiums as plush as the stuff down in Texas. I mean, when you have a high school with 22 to 30,000 seats, that's unrealistic, but that's a community event. And that's why football is so big in the South. They'll make the investments for the sports that they endear.
Yeah.
And that's football. Now, you look at California, as you've talked about it, there's been a state that has offered up a lot of great athletes over the years.
Oh, yeah.
A state that has been, as they say, in financial trouble. And I think it's a state that also, Charlton, participates in the lottery.
Yep, that's true.
In the lottery, where is all that lottery money that is supposed to be going towards education?
I think it's going to Kobe Bryant's bank account. He's getting money for not playing.
Now, when you look at education, they've always talked about athletics being a part of education.
Yeah.
Now, a fit body will help produce a fit mind also, Charlton.
Yes.
So now, if you don't aid these children in physical fitness, these children will become obese and sluggish, and they're not going to be productive in society in most cases. So if you don't do things to attract these kids in, to help them out, and that's by putting together proper facilities, providing decent equipment, Charlton, and those are the things that you're not getting in the inner city, not just on the West Coast, in the Northeast, and even in the South.
Yeah.
Those kids that are in the suburban areas where the tax bases are higher, the homes are newer. When these developers go in, Charlton, that's part of what's put on the developer by those cities, is that you have to invest in the community. You have to put in parks. You have to invest in the school system. Help us upgrade that. If you're going to build homes in our community, then you got to invest in our physical fitness and education program, Charlton.
Well, see, and that's why I think it's a little sad, because I see what the great Mayor Kevin Johnson is doing out here, and he's had some issues. Brian Gumbo had brought up a story from back in the day, which is just ridiculous, trying to tear down his character from something he's been exonerated from. But he helped keep the Kings in Sacramento. He's also trying to make baseball more diverse for young kids of color as well as kids of the mainstream. That's why I'm disappointed that the great broadcasters like a Vern Lindquist, like a Jim Nantz, and even Mike Tirico, they do nothing to talk about inclusion. When they have a microphone, they have the whole world watching the Masters, and they act as if we're in the 1940s where it's just the good old boys and everything's the same, and they're afraid to take a stance, and I think that's a shame. It's kind of a waste of time and a waste of a microphone, because they really don't stand for much.
Charlton, I don't know if they're afraid to take a stance. I think they don't care. There's a difference about being afraid and about caring. The only reason you're afraid is because you care. And you're worried. They don't care. It's irrelevant to them. They go home, that you can go to your nice estate, whatever. You're getting paid. You've made millions of dollars by athletes making you that money because you're talking about this particular athlete. You're describing what this athlete is doing. If somebody turned down the volume, they would not miss you. But when they have an opportunity to help out society, none of these broadcasters will ever speak up. They say, hey, I'm getting paid to talk about the game, which is what they are. But they're also societal vehicles, Charlton. They're the voice. They're the voice that people listen to and believe. So if they tell all the listeners that everything is fine, then that's what they believe, that everything is fine. But if they tell the listeners that there is a problem, and that problem could be remedied, and if they gave them the remedy during their broadcast, then listeners would pay attention to that also, Charlton.
And see, that's perfect. You just hit the home run right there, Big C, and I think that's important because I don't take for granted, not 1 second, that when you and I talk, and number one, I appreciate you talking to me about doing a program because you've been around the business about 40 years, television and radio, and also all-pro football player, but because you have a conscience to talk about how we leave the world better. I think back to when I first met the great Howard Cosell. I was a young boy, but he and Muhammad Ali had some conversations that was not just about the next fight, Big C. It was about how the social change that Muhammad Ali was creating would benefit future generations. I don't see that from the great Vern Lindquist. I don't see it from Jim Nash, and I love their body of work as announcers, but as social figures, I think it's embarrassing. They've made tens of millions of dollars. They do nothing to help someone who looks like my son have an easier path to the Masters or other courses that are exclusionary. I think even the Olympic Club here in the great state of California over in San Francisco, that's also a course where they don't allow diversity to come in there. I think it's a joke.
Well, Charlton, when you mention those broadcasters, I'll even go and look at Greg Gumbel, Brian Gumbel, Jim Brown, players of that magnitude. I mean, announcers of that magnitude, Mike Tirico.
Yeah.
Who are African-American announcers who have an opportunity to help us out. Robin Roberts.
Yeah.
Good Morning America. They're
Yeah.
there. They have platforms. You have to speak a little out. Even the great Oprah Winfrey, when she was on air with her continuous show.
Yeah.
You have to be more vocal when you have that opportunity. Everyone is not going to get on television. I don't care whether you're white, black, Asian, Indian,
Right.
whatever, Charles.
Exactly.
You're not. But when you're there and you have a leadership role, you have to speak in behalf of it. President Obama has spoken more in behalf of African Americans and his disappointment in American society as a whole than any other leader in history, okay?
Yeah.
It's back when everyone thought that Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves. He did not free the slaves.
Right.
The Emancipation Proclamation was about definancing the South. That's all it was about. He wanted to take the slaves and use them for the North. They were not set free through the Emancipation Proclamation. They were not set free until after his death, unfortunately. Yeah. But when you look at things over history, President Kennedy, he had an opportunity to pass the Civil Rights Voting Act. He never did it. Right. It took Lyndon Johnson after Kennedy's death to make that a law. Yeah. So when you look at great figures in history, Lyndon Johnson will never get the credit for what he did for minorities, Charlton. I agree. People think it was Kennedy, but it was Lyndon Johnson, the great president from the state of Texas, that did that for us. And so when you look at people who have a statute of power that can do things to benefit all of society, to help out every race. Yeah. And when you sit back and you say, the time is not right. Lincoln said that. Kennedy said that.
People in corporate America say that also, Big C. They're always saying put things off. Because as you're making this point, Big C, I don't mean to cut you off, but a 62-year-old Mr. Emmanuel here in Sacramento, California, a former Major League Baseball manager, he worries about the future of baseball with fewer African-American players. And he says if you eliminate a culture from the game that gave us great players like Jackie Robinson, the great Willie Mays, the great Hank Aaron, even Barry Bonds, Vida Blue. We think about all of these great players that we take for granted. There was a time when they were excluded from it. Now, when you have mayors and commissioners, and that's why I congratulate the commissioner, Rob Manfred, baseball manager for Major League Baseball, they have a stance. They're like Howard Cosell, and they're like Muhammad Ali, because they're not silent like some of these great golfers, and we're all going to pat people on the back. We're all going to give a quiet handshake and say, hey, that a boy, what a great play, as long as you don't have too much inclusion. They're so comfortable, and I hate that. That's why I applaud the great Mayor Johnson, and he's coming under such scrutiny, even by Bryant Gumbel trying to ridicule his character again, but they don't even have the character that this man has to make sure that outside of him and his success, he's opening the door for other people, and golf is just dropping the ball, Big C.
Golf has dropped the ball. Charlton, Major League Baseball has dropped the ball for errors. Now, if you look at a team like the Boston Red Sox, okay? Yeah. The only African Americans on the Boston Red Sox are in the starting lineup. Yeah. When you look down on the bench, then there's 25 players on a Major League roster, 25, 26 players. Yeah. And those guys that are sitting on the bench in the dugout, you don't see black players, Charlton. Yeah. You see white players that are not getting in the lineup, the utility players. Those are white players. As on many other Major League rosters, Charlton, you will not pay an African-American player to sit there in the dugout. You'll give that to an Anglo player. And that's across the line in Major League. It's almost like an unwritten rule. Yeah. It's not on the paper. But when you look at a dugout and you see the complexity of the dugout, it's 99% white, Charles, of the players who are not in the lineup on the field. You might get a relief pitcher here there that's African-American, Cuban, or Venezuelan. Yeah. But the players, the utility players sitting on the bench, 90% of the time, 90 to 95% of all the teams in the major leagues, Charlton, are white. Well, see, why is that? Well, see, that's a great point because
And I do want to congratulate Rob Manfred, the Major League Baseball commissioner. African-American players were 15 to 20% in Major League Baseball rosters. Big C, back to 1971 to 1997. Today, it only accounts for 7%. And we're going to be having Jackie Robinson Day coming up pretty soon. But 7% are African-American. But at least I admire the push because golf does not do it. And speaking of golf, I just want to say that this segment is sponsored by your Northern California BMW dealers, home of the ultimate driving machine. Go down and test drive the all-new 600 horsepower 7 Series BMW, also known as the 760 Li and the M7. So Big C, as we talk about inclusion, it's not just Charlton and Big C. I do again congratulate Mayor Kevin Johnson and also the Commissioner of Major League Baseball for trying to make a stance. And I think, maybe something miraculous will happen. Jim Nantz will actually talk about it over the weekend, but I doubt it.
Let's not be misled thinking that the commissioner makes the change.
Yeah.
Mayor Kevin Johnson makes the change. I know you talked about the
But he's trying, though, Big C. He's trying at least.
African-American participation in Major League Baseball. Go back to 1968.
Yeah.
When it was 53% of Major League Baseball was African-American.
Yeah.
1968, 53%. Now, who is the guys that are selecting the rosters? Who are the GMs? Who is the director of player personnel? Who are the owners, Charlton?
That's the good old boy network.
How many African Americans do we have in decision-making positions in Major League Baseball, in the front offices? That's where the decisions are made, Charlton. When you're sitting out there and you're handing out these multi-million-dollar contracts. Now, you got to understand another thing about baseball, Charlton.
Yeah.
One day in the major leagues and you're guaranteed your pension for life. So they're very scrutinous about who they want to have being paid for the rest of their lives, Charlton. They're just not going to bring up all these black players. That's just the nuts and bolts of it. And so when you have ownership and you have managers, look at a team like Tampa Bay, Charlton.
Yeah.
Tampa Bay, one of the better young teams in baseball.
Yeah.
But it was an all-white team, and they let their best player go, who was black, David Price.
Yeah.
Okay, who is now up in Boston pitching. He was in Toronto last year, but David Price was the best player on the Tampa Bay Devil Rays baseball team. They let him go because they did not want to pay him the money that he was worth. And he took them through it within a game of the World Series several years ago. But he wasn't worth keeping because he was an African-American player. But they paid Evan Longoria, their third baseman, who has gone downhill since David Price has left.
Well,
and he's white.
Well, speaking of that, too, how that transitions, we know the NBA is about 70% African-American, but it's becoming a global sport because all kids love it. And that's why I think golf is dropping the ball. And this last segment is sponsored by your Northern California Ford dealer, home of the all-new F-150. They build it for it tough. When you go down and test drive it, tell them that Charlton and Big C sent you. Now, Big C, the NBA, to me, is a perfect league because when you look at the fans, there's so much diversity, unlike the Masters. Last night, Golden State over in Oakland defeated San Antonio. They become the second team in the National Basketball Association to win 70 games. They're now 70-9. It was so exciting, not because it was just Golden State and San Antonio. They're great players, great teams, and it's great for basketball. But when you look at the coaching, there's diversity in some of the coaching. On the coaching staff, you don't see it just all white with one black guy sitting there like they have Mike Tirico down at the Masters announcing. It's more inclusive. But I think that's the pushback. That's what golf doesn't want to see, and I think that's intentional, Big C. But as we talk about Golden State, what are your thoughts on them? 3 games to go. Can they break the record? They got to beat San Antonio one more time down in the great state of Texas, Big C.
Well, whether they break the record or not or even tie the record, Charlton, what Golden State's goal was at the beginning of the season was to repeat as NBA championship.
Yeah.
The record has been put on their back by the media, not by themselves. Yes, they would like to break the record. As an athlete, you're competitive.
Yeah. And
you like to be in that exclusive club of owning something, okay? Yeah. But what's more important than the record is to have a back-to-back championship banner hanging in your new arena that you're going to be opening next year.
Yeah.
If they don't get the record, Charlton, does that make them any less of players or teams? Or does it make the media disappointed that they can't have something easy to write about? You look at the negativity that's spurred toward the Warriors when they lose a game.
Yeah.
How can you be negative towards the Warriors and you only have 9 losses in the season? Go out and talk about the Lakers, the Philadelphia 76ers, the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Yeah.
These teams that can't put 20 wins on the ledger, Charlton.
Well,
let the media write a story about them. I love the Warriors because they're great for the NBA. Without the Warriors in San Antonio this year, what would the NBA have? They would have a crying LeBron, Charlton.
Well, speaking of a crying LeBron, I think about some of the great Laker teams and the great Celtics teams and even the good boys, the bad boys and Detroit Pistons and even the Miami Heat. But what I'm seeing right now with basketball, it just seems to me that Golden State, they can turn it on as long as they don't turn the ball over. I don't see any team that can hang with them. Even though San Antonio is very good, I think it goes down to who gets a call here and there, Big C. But if they get into a running match, nobody can run with them.
You're trying to see the Michael Jordan rule?
Wait.
If you get too close to Michael, you know you're going to call. So if he's driving down the lane, everybody get out of the way.
That's what Magic Johnson said in the Olympic team. Don't get too close to Michael. They may call a foul. He might have been right. But also, Big C, San Antonio, Greg Popovich talking about resting some players down the road, down the stretch. They could go 41-0 at home. That would be the first time ever in the league of the NBA. You think that's important to him, Big C, or not?
No, I don't think it's important.
You may not think it's important to him, but when you think about Greg Popovich and how, if we look about all the people that want to see Golden State set the record, they want to see Golden State do some great things, and they want to see if Golden State can actually get over the hump and go undefeated. But do you think that San Antonio matters, if it matters to them to go undefeated at home, Big C?
I don't think it matters, Charlton, because, Pop has rested players over the years. As a matter of fact, last week he rested players for a couple games.
Yeah.
And he's all about winning. He's the consummate coach. He's not going to run.
Are you saying he's resting players?
It's not beneficial in the long run. And that's why he has 5 NBA championship rings, Charlton. He knows how to gauge his players' health, the fatigue factor in them. And he knows, and they'll talk to him, to coach, I need rest. He's okay with that, or he'll force them down.
Yeah.
But the end result is, look at this coach. 50-plus wins every year.
Every year.
For the
Incredible.
past 15 years.
Incredible.
That's impeccable.
Yeah.
Tim Duncan has the 3rd most victories all time as a player in NBA history. Only behind the great Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and the Chief, Robert Parrish, who played with the Boston Celtics. Oh, and before getting to the Boston Celtics, he was with the Golden State Warriors, Charlton.
So that's what they say. It never rains in California until Steph Curry and Klay Thompson start shooting threes. In the last minute of the program, Big C, we know that the Masters is big. I love golf, and I think, unlike a lot of people, they say, well, let's not talk about it right now. We don't want to make people uncomfortable. Just like in the civil rights movement, things don't get comfortable until you talk about it. We know the great T.D. Jakes, he follows our program also. He talks about inclusion, treat people fair. Your last way to sum it up, Big C, how can we get people to come together, not just one person, but the whole society, to get more inclusive, to help all kids of all colors feel like they have a place at the Masters also, Big C?
Well, the thing that we've always strived for in America is equality. I think when you look back at South Africa with the great late Nelson Mandela, Charlton, that country advanced more and quicker than any country in history from the 90s to where it is today. Yeah. Because when you talked about inclusion, it was like, share. This is one country. Let's share. Yeah. But we have a country built on the industrial, military, and power complex, okay? Financial. Yeah. I'm not going to give up mine. I'm not going to make it equal distribution because they might move in next to me. And you always talk about Chris Rock. Yeah. And I think about Chris Rock some years ago. I was at one of his shows and we were backstage talking. Yeah. And he was talking about what some of his work he was going to do. And he walked out and he talked about the people that lived in his neighborhood. Now, the people who lived in his neighborhood in New Jersey. Right. Jay-Z lived in this neighborhood. Yeah. Mary J. Blige lived in this neighborhood. Yeah. And he did. Those are the only 3 blacks lived in the neighborhood. Yeah. And Chris said, I'm rich. Now, my neighbor is a damn dentist. How many teeth you got to pull to live in that house next to me? And his house was $7 million. And speaking of pulling teeth, Big C, as you know, it always ends too fast. You got a tooth you need to pull, but you can always get it pulled on the Charlton and Big C shorts every Monday through Friday at 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Go out and enjoy the sports world. Go out and enjoy your neighbors. Let's make it so that everybody can enjoy sports and getting together every Monday through Friday, 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time on Charlton and Big C Sports.
Thank you for listening. Have a super fantastic weekend.